During the pandemic, the supply and demand dynamics around the chip industry were out of whack. Most people don't realize is that we didn't actually produce fewer chips. We actually produced more chips each year of the pandemic. The problem was that supply couldn't keep up with demand. And we had demand in segments of the industry that we weren't expecting. That created hundreds of billions of dollars of losses for manufacturers like automakers because they couldn't finish the goods that were sitting in their factory parking lots and therefore couldn't sell them. And that matters because the shortages we saw in 2021 and 2022 are tiny in comparison to the shortages we would see if something happened to a large-scale chip maker like those in Taiwan. And if any of this is disrupted, chip production could break down. And if chip production in Taiwan breaks down, that matters for everyone because everyone uses Taiwanese-made chips. I'm Chris Miller, a professor at the Fletcher School and author of Chip War, the fight for the world's most critical technology.
What happens when chip production is disrupted?
Well, I like to think of cars as a case study in how we rely on chips for almost everything. If you sit in a new car, it will have on average 1,000 chips inside of it. It's a chip that makes the window move up or down when you press the button. It's a chip that manages the windshield wipers going back and forth. If you have any sort of autonomous braking features in your car, there's a chip that manages the sensor, a chip that sends that information to the brakes to step on the brakes if there's an object in front of your vehicle. If you've got an internal combustion engine, there's a chip that manages fuel injection into your engine to make sure it's operating the right way. There's, of course, a chip that's attached to your GPS, multiple chips in the display that tells you where to go when you're looking for directions. I've only mentioned a dozen or so chips, and there are several hundred more that make your car work the way you expect. And cars are not really unique. Today, everything that we rely on, almost anything with an on-off switch, has at least one and often dozens or hundreds of chips inside. The other way to think about the ubiquity of chips is just to walk around your apartment or your house and look at the devices. The dishwasher, the microwave, your coffee maker, your washing machine, any sort of consumer electronic you have, they all require chips. And it's often not just one chip, it's often a fair number of chips. And the more complex the chip, the harder it is to make, and therefore generally the more companies can charge for selling it. So the chip in your smartphone, for example, that runs the operating system is extraordinarily complex. Billions of transistors. It has to operate at extraordinary speed, draw on as little power as possible because your battery life is constrained. And so having perfectly optimized smartphone processors is really important, which is why Apple designs its own smartphone processors in-house. It doesn't trust anyone else to do it. And so those chips are really expensive compared to many other types of chips that you'd find in a dishwasher or a washing machine, which can cost less than $1 because they're not required to do anything particularly complex. And the reality is that as devices get more advanced, as we have more and more things connecting to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, more sensors, more AI capabilities installed in devices, we're going to be using more and more chips as far as we can see into the future. During the pandemic, the supply and demand dynamics around the chip industry were out of whack because a lot of people ordered new computers, for example, to work from home, and so PC production shot up in ways that weren't expected, or people bought fewer cars in the early days of the pandemic, and so car production declined, and companies couldn't predict what type of chip they would need. The effect of that was to create shortages of certain types of chips. When demand roared back in the later stages of the pandemic, car companies in particular found they couldn't get the types of chips that they rely on to produce cars. And that was something they hadn't focused on for a long time. They thought of their supply chain as being about engines and wheels and axles and other parts of the car that you think of when you think of car parts. But today, contemporary cars require a lot of chips, hundreds or even thousands of chips for the most sophisticated cars. And the thing about cars is if you're missing just one chip, your car often doesn't work. And during the pandemic, car companies found themselves often in that situation. Just a single chip, often even the cheapest chips, were causing them to have to leave cars in the factory parking lot as they waited for the right chip to arrive. And that illustrated a couple of things. First is that complex manufactured devices like cars need a lot of chips. Second, they don't just need the same type of chip. They need 1,000 different types of chips produced by different manufacturers. And if even one of those is late, the car has to wait until it arrives. And the third thing it illustrated is that it's not just the tech sector that needs chips, it's actually everything. It's cars, it's tractors, it's medical devices. All of these face shortages during the pandemic because they couldn't get the types of chips that they needed. And the really interesting thing about the pandemic that most people don't realize is that we didn't actually produce fewer chips. We actually produced more chips each year of the pandemic. The problem was that supply couldn't keep up with demand. And we had demand in segments of the industry that we weren't expecting. That created hundreds of billions of dollars of losses for manufacturers like automakers because they couldn't finish the goods that were sitting in their factory parking lots and therefore couldn't sell them. And that matters because the shortages we saw in 2021 and 2022 are tiny in comparison to the shortages we would see if something happened to a large-scale chip maker like those in Taiwan. Anything that disrupted chip production in Taiwan would be catastrophic for the world economy, for the United States, for Europe, for Japan, for everyone, because everyone relies on chips made in Taiwan. Earthquakes are one thing that could cause problems. And the reality is that Taiwan's had a lot of earthquakes, so they're pretty well prepared. And chip facilities, because they have to be extraordinarily safe from vibration, they're actually among the most earthquake-safe buildings that exist today. So it's not a guarantee, but it means that they've done a lot in terms of ensuring themselves from earthquakes. Water is one of the materials that's actually most widely used in chip manufacturing for a number of the manufacturing steps. And it needs to be ultra-purified water too. And so chip plants have to draw huge volumes of water from the local water supply and then try to recycle that at the end to make sure there aren't any chemicals that are being discharged back into the environment. And it's a major challenge for chip makers because the volumes that they use are huge. And many of the places where chips are manufactured don't have surplus water. So in Taiwan, droughts have been an issue many times in recent years. And it's a major limitation on TSMC's ability to expand its manufacturing footprint in Taiwan. The other is energy. Electricity is very important for chip making, and as we use more advanced chip making tools in factories, they require even more power to operate. And so electricity is a second limiting factor as well, and especially as countries try to use more green energy, that creates more challenges because you need both more energy, but also you need energy that's perfectly reliable. And so the sun or wind power can't always be relied on, which means that if you're in Taiwan trying to map out your future power supply, you've got a limited number of options to look at. I think the bigger risk is not seismic, but rather geopolitical. It's that China carries through on the threats it regularly makes to use force against Taiwan to take control of the island. And for a long time, I think people wrote off that risk as unlikely because for a long time, China was weak and the United States was pledging to protect Taiwan. But today, China's getting stronger every single year. Its military capabilities are growing on a regular basis. And this has raised questions about whether we need to worry that China might at some point move on Taiwan. And the problem is that even a small move, a small conflict would be disastrous for the chip industry because it's not just about the security of the facilities themselves, it's also about the supply chain. Taiwan needs to import energy, needs to import chemicals, materials, tools, spare parts, many of which come from abroad, from Japan, from the United States, from Europe, energy coming in from the Middle East. And if any of this is disrupted, chip production could break down. And if chip production in Taiwan breaks down, that matters for everyone because everyone uses Taiwanese-made chips.